Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and we have a really cool guest with us on our podcast today. I got Blake Wrinn. Blake's a very hot shot, up-and-coming guitarist, and he also happens to be one of the most genuine people I've ever met. He's performed across the entire United States, sharing the stage with loads of top artists, including Ricky Skaggs, Mercy Me, Lee Brice, Boys to Men, Craig Morgan, Eli Young Band, 38 Special, one of my favorites, Thompson Square. He's played with the Nashville Symphony Orchestra, which is a really great symphony orchestra, Kentucky Headhunters, Lenny LeBlanc, and Josh Thompson. He's also played on loads of demos for top Nashville songwriters, including Sarah Buxton, Ben Hayslip, Jimmy Yeary, Monty Criswell, and Big Daddy Weave. As you'll hear, Blake was raised in a small town just south of Nashville. His dad was a veteran road musician, and his mom was a school teacher, and he's got a brother who also shares the same passion for music. At a young age, Blake was exposed to music and the fundamentals involved in playing with a band. And from 2006 to 2010, Blake actually attended Motlow State Community College for emergency medical services. So if you are on stage with this man and you start tripping, he'll take care of you. And he got a full ride jazz guitar scholarship. So Blake, I really appreciate your time, man. It's great to have you. Thank you so much.
Craig, glad to do it. How are you, man?
I'm doing awesome, man.
Awesome.
You know, we have had a lot of conversations at this point. I usually say at this point, hey, relax, speak to me like you've known me for 10 years, but I think we've already passed that stage, right?
Totally so.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, all day.
Awesome. So I was checking out your website, and everybody should check them out at Blake Wrinn Music. That's Blake, BlakeWrinn music.com. If I have to spell music for you, you're in the wrong place. But check it out. He's got a really nice website. He's a real gearhead. But I want to talk about that video on your website where you're playing guitar. And did you also play, it's on that Jacob Rice video, did you play mandolin on that as well?
Actually, the mandolin part was Jake himself playing. So were the solos. I think actually what only made the record were some rhythm passes and stuff I did. Jake was pretty solid on that. He's a great player.
That video, though, looked like a ton of fun.
Oh, gosh.
On the beach, was it?
Oh, it was a blast. Yeah, it was some of the most fun I've had, and not really making music, you know, you're not really even playing, but it was a lot of fun.
Now I know there's no ocean near you guys. Was that filmed on a lake up there in Nashville, or?
No, gosh, it was in Florida. I wish I could remember. It was in the kind of in the Gulf area, but like a kind of a private beach. It was gorgeous, small town on the beach.
That's awesome, man. And it was really funny, like the actual storyline of the video. That's like what every 17-year-old guy thinks falling in love is like.
Totally.
Oh wow, she looked at me and now we're dating.
Totally.
She waited for me after the band.
Totally. And fun fact, the jealous boyfriend in there is actually my brother.
Really?
Yeah, he sure is.
That's cool. So you got to come down and hang out with your brother down in Florida.
Oh, totally. And Jake. Jake is such a good friend. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Very cool. What are you working on right now that you're most excited about? I know you got your hands in a lot of things.
Oh, man. I'm on the road with a couple new artists, but I'd have to say one of the ones I'm really excited about is a new girl in Nashville called Haley Vaughn. And part of the reason I'm excited is a good friend and mentor of mine, Matt McClure. You've heard his work like with Lee Brice Records and Kelly Pickler Records. He actually won Song of the Year, producer for that, and on the Lee Brice stuff. But anyway, Matt's working close with Haley and asked me to come out and play a few shows just kind of around the country and stuff. And I'm really excited about that, not just because of Haley, but because she's got a great team behind her, you know, and that's huge. But I think she's got a lot going for her.
Awesome. When do you hit the road with her?
Let's see. I actually have a rehearsal this coming month. And then the first date I have with her is at the end of the month. We're going to San Diego for a couple days.
Wow, that's not a bad place to travel to.
No, man, that's one of my favorite cities. I love it. There. Oh, yeah, it is.
even the airport there is like, it looks like a 5-star resort. You know, I just coming off the plane. Yeah, I like
totally so. And it's the funny thing that always strikes me about San Diego is I always notice how clean the air is. It's super weird.
Yeah, it is. It's very clean out there. That's very true.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But you know what? I think that's a West Coast, because, you know, even though you're not on the East Coast, Tennessee weather is humid and hot, just like Florida.
No, especially today.
Yeah, yeah. And when I've been out to the West Coast a couple of times, and you just don't have that level of moisture, and it really changes the dynamics of your quality of life.
Absolutely, it's great.
So, and this came about originally because of Matt, because Matt knew you, and he's a fan of your guitar playing. So, I know you're from a small town. What's the name of the town where you grew up?
The town where I grew up is called Tullahoma, and it's kind of it's one of those towns that's like off of the interstate system. So it's kind of not huge in commerce, but you probably have heard the town next to it called Manchester, and that's where Bonnaroo is and things like that. So I grew up there, and I moved to Knoxville about 5 years ago when I got married, and then I'm actually back and forth now. We have a house in Knoxville, but I also am every week in Nashville working there and living with Jacob Rice from the videos.
Oh, that's awesome, man! Very cool.
Yeah.
So that's got to be tough on you, though. I mean, because I know you have a little girl.
Yeah, but I tell you, there's been a lot that's gone on with just being on the road and learning a lot there, and kind of learning just kind of how to be a dad in that situation has become an adventure. But I'd have to say, you know, since I'm taking a little more break from the road, like I'm not out gone all the time, and I'm focusing more on the session thing, it actually feels a little easier now, you know. So
that's great. I mean, raising a kid, even when you're home full time in more of a quote conventional, you know, state of living, is definitely not easy. So I think everybody's learning, regardless of whether they're in your situation traveling. I mean, I knew I was, and I still am. My kids are older, to be honest with you. So
yeah, it's a constant education for sure there in parenting.
And sometimes not a very pleasant education.
No, it's not.
So
Man,
far,
I hate being away from him for a long period. I hate it.
Hey, your dad was a professional musician. Talk about his influence on you and your career.
Oh gosh, where do I start? Well, I'd say there's a couple different ways. One of the big things that I see that he taught me, it feels a little bit more like second nature now, is listening while you play. Like when I'm playing with a group, especially during an audition period or during a rehearsal period, just kind of not always being in your own world and worried about what you're playing, but the more you get outside of your head and the more you listen to what the other players are doing, that's really when you start creating something special. And generally, if you're stuck in your head, you tend to kind of just go your own path. But it's such a cool thing in the moment that when somebody does something that maybe wasn't on the record, or just a thought they had come into their head or whatever, it sparks something new in your head, and you wouldn't have gone down that road if you hadn't heard what they did. So it kind of adds to the music. It sometimes becomes something new. That's really what I love about the session thing too, is it's kind of creating a song there together in the moment. So that's a big thing that he taught me, was just listening while you're playing, listening to everybody else. And then there were business things, that he kind of helped with, like never, ever turn down an audition, just always take that and even if it doesn't feel like a good fit, or if whatever the case may be, like it's always good to just to get to know those people. And goes back to kind of what I was saying in one of our conversations. Like, I'm just a big relationship guy. At the end of the day, I really don't care about anything more than having a great relationship with a person. So.
And so I assume even if the audition isn't a fit, the wisdom of taking that is that now you've got another sort of sponsor out there that would say, hey man, this guy played really well, or I liked him. It wasn't a fit for our thing, but now you got one more like salesman promoting you in a sense.
Well, that's exactly it. And also, I mean, it's also kind of, in a way, you can kind of have more people's back is the way I look at it. Like life happens regardless of how much of an industry giant or whatever, however you're approaching it. Whatever you want to be, life still happens. You still get flat tires, you still get sick, and you can't make a gig. You can't make a job. And it's, if I can get the call and be there to kind of ease some minds and tensions, man, that's just totally worth it to me,
Sure.
So.
I want to go back to what you talked about listening, because I think that's really good wisdom. I also think that your ability to do that, I would imagine, is proportional to the confidence you have in your playing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good, yeah. Well, I tell you, it's, I think listening as you play is not something you get good at and forget it and it becomes second nature. I think sometimes it can become like a sixth sense, but you also have to kind of always go into every job, whether it's even a job gig or whether it's just playing with your friends in a basement or whatever, like it's something you always have to go in with the mindset of, because if you listen as you play, you've basically opened yourself up to just like get better instantly from that, like it's just like us talking to each other, like us playing together. We always learn something new about life or the other person, or it's the same thing with playing together. Like you always learn some new lick, some new way to approach a chord progression or a melody, or it's just a learning experience when you open yourself up to that, I feel like.
Oh, I totally agree, but I know, like, you have to have, for example, I don't have years under my belt of guitar playing. I'm not, my competency as just a player is nowhere near somebody like yourself. So it would be very hard for me to go and actively listen as well as you would, because I am not confident in what I
see what you're saying.
I have to devote more of my brain to what I'm doing, because it's not second nature. When we're having a conversation, no problem, I can do that. I mean, most of the time. But
sure.
But yeah, that's what I meant. Like, I think that you need seasoning and experience and confidence in what you're doing, so that you can now say, okay, I know what's going on here. I don't have to worry about, am I going to hit this note, miss these chords. I can devote normally part that I'd have to focus on keeping my own stuff together to somebody else to take that in and get better.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a really good point. And I feel like I in some ways I wish I was a better practicer, and I honestly can't describe what I mean by that. But what I do know practice is good for in my case is, on days I'm off, or days that, I say it's like a slow week and I'm not doing a lot of sessions, or I'm not out on the road, it's extremely vital for me to always be listening to new music and always learning new things and keeping current. And in that, I'm kind of beating that into my brain and learning to feel it, not just learn it and reproduce it, but feel it, feel new things that are coming out. And so now that I've done that, it's kind of in a muscle memory state. So when I get in a session or a rehearsal or whatever, that's kind of, it's a little bit subconscious, and my ears can float around the room a little more. Like,
awesome. When you mentioned your brother a couple of times, is he a professional guitar player also?
Actually, he's a phenomenal bass player. He's the kind of bass player that every musician wants to play with. But awesome. Yeah, he plays for Lauren Elena. She's a country artist, and she's doing a lot of great things. She was an American Idol contestant. Okay. And she recently just had her first #1, and she's got a killer record out. It is awesome.
That's awesome. And your brother's on tour with her?
Yeah. Oh, they're awesome. On. I think right now they're. Oh, thank you. Yeah, all the congratulations to him. He's worked hard for it. But I believe they're on the Luke Bryan tour right now.
That's awesome, man. I think he was just down here in Tampa recently. I'm not sure.
I would almost bet so.
Yeah. When did you know you wanted to be a professional guitar player? Was it like when you first started as a kid, or?
Well, when I was a kid, my dream was actually to be a fighter pilot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about dreaming big.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, I was gung-ho for it. I was like, all I wanted to do was get aircraft books from the library, and I would trace these planes, and I would like learn to draw planes, learn everything about planes. I would watch Top Gun 80 times a week. That was my thing. Like, it's what I was going to do. And I remember when I was in 6th grade, this is how big it was. My dad actually had to sit me down for it. And he said, listen, we knew it was kind of iffy about, I have to have glasses.
Oh, okay.
And we knew that was a very iffy thing. And he said, well, LASIK surgery isn't Top Gun approved, It isn't, you can't do it at the moment with LASIK surgery. And that was just, I remember my heart sinking in my chest, like, wow. Oh no. And of course now, LASIK surgery is approved. Thank you, Top Gun.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
And yeah, it totally is. And such a new thing then that they didn't know. But so that kind of I was already playing guitar for a couple years. I learned when I was 10, and my brother and father were already playing, and they actually didn't think I would really have any interest because I didn't start young. And
wait a minute, it's all relative, man. Because your dad was a professional musician, and your brother was playing probably seriously at that point. But 10 years old is young, man. But when you're coming from a family of musicians, they were thinking you're going to be like Tiger Woods. He started playing golf at 5.
Yeah,
5 years too late.
Music was always one of those things that it was happening in our house all the time, and we were always around it. And it was at 10, music wasn't something we were starting to think about. Music was something that we were pretty well voiced in, by then. So, there was an appreciation for music, but I didn't really. I actually wanted to kind of learn drums at that point, but So anyway, I kind of went through a couple instruments. What do I learn to play, and got a guitar in my hand, and kind of started going with that. So anyway, after being a fighter pilot was out, I just kind of started doing the guitar a little more. It was a slow fade out of the pilot world.
Yeah, man, because your whole, it's like getting divorced almost, right?
Yeah, it was sad, man.
It's a breakup. Yeah, sure.
I was so sad. Oh, I remember the feeling as I'm talking about it.
Yeah, I'm sure, man. What was that first guitar you had?
So the first guitar that I actually learned on, it was a family guitar. We had one guitar in the house.
Acoustic or electric?
Yeah, an acoustic.
Okay.
And it was this Washburn that my dad had picked up, and my dad was kind of this goes into a whole nother story with his road stuff and all that, but basically ended up, there was one guitar around the house, and that was the one he played all the time, and that my brother learned on, and I learned on, and then my 12th birthday, so around, I guess actually around the time of the catastrophe of finding out I couldn't be a pilot, I got my first guitar.
You have like PTSD from that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm blowing a little out of proportion, but it was changing. You know, it was life changing. Yeah. And the first guitar I got, probably that same year, the next year, was a little baby Taylor guitar. And man, that was just the stuff. Oh my gosh, like. That was probably the coolest birthday present I will have gotten and will ever get. But
you still have it?
So we're unpacking a big story here. I don't have it. I'll keep it in a nutshell. I don't have it. I got rid of it for my first electric, which was an Epiphone Les Paul at our local music store. And couple years after I got rid of it, I really regretted that I got rid of it. And there was this guitar trio thing my dad, brother, and I did every year at our church during Christmas. And I would always like get a loaner guitar because I didn't have an acoustic. And this one year, Dad was able to get a baby Taylor on loan, and I loved it. And this was at the Christmas Eve service. So I'm playing this guitar, I'm loving it. And we get back home. We do our rest of our Christmas Eve stuff. I wake up the next morning. We do all our gifts, and we finish up. About to go to my grandparents' house, and my dad's like, "Well, there's one more present that you haven't opened." And I start playing the hot and cold game with him, walking around the house. Finally, I get hot, and I'm standing right beside this baby Taylor, and it's Kip.
Oh man.
Yeah. And so they start laughing because I get it, and they're like, "You were playing your own guitar last night."
How
and you
cool is that, man? That's
yeah.
Wow, your parents are awesome. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
man.
Totally awesome.
That's so cool. That's a great story, man.
Yeah, it was super cool. So So
they found the original guitar you had, or was it just the same model but another Taylor?
It was the same model. Actually, some family friends of ours that went to the church, their daughter wanted to learn, and she had my original. That's who bought it. And they weren't willing to, they didn't want to sell it. She loved the guitar.
Sure.
So it was a different one, but I held on to that for quite a few more years and ended up getting rid of it. And it was a business move, so it was an upgrade. So I'm not heartbroken over that trade, but.
You got to reunite with your second love.
Totally. And my daughter has a baby Taylor now too.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of Taylor guitars are a family thing for us.
Now, I should mention, you said your dad played for Hank Williams, if I'm not mistaken?
No. Now, Dad...
who did he play with?
Dad played for Waylon Jennings.
Waylon Jennings, I'm sorry.
Yeah, for a little while, and then he did... him and two other buddies, they had their own record deal after he left Waylon, and he did that for a little while. And this is what I was referring to earlier, this part of the story. My brother actually remembers, like, my dad, the end days of my dad being on the road, but when right around the time I came about, my dad came off the road.
Okay. And
so I actually never knew that. Right. I just kind of knew the stories and the lessons and all that, but never seeing it firsthand. But of course, there was still a guitar around the house and stuff. So
he always played acoustic. He didn't play electric.
Yeah, Dad has always been a very big stickler for rhythm playing, and that's his wheelhouse. Cool. It's definitely rhythm playing, and that's kind of where his heart is, definitely. That and finger picking.
And you still around, your dad?
Yeah, sure
awesome.
is.
Awesome,
sure
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you guys get to play together once in a while.
We do. Not as often as we'd like, but...
Well, that's just life, but that's good that you guys get together, man. That's fantastic.
Sure.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's great when we get to play together.
That's a really nice story. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
Besides your dad, who were some of your bigger influences on you guitar-wise, and has this changed over the years? Like, have you gotten more influences or different music, or?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, first of all, the first part, I guess, biggest influences were probably Joe Walsh and Don Felder from the Eagles.
Oh my God! Now you're talking my language, brother.
Yeah, man. I remember I think I was 4 years old maybe when the Eagles reunited and did that big special, and they had it on PBS and all that. I remember my dad calling me into the room and saying, "You got to sit down. You got to watch this." And I still remember that to this day. And I think that was really I wasn't even playing guitar then,
Right.
and it had a huge impact on we all have those things where it's like, wow, the guitar is cool because of this, and that was it for me. Another one was really B.B. King. And the man was so great, not because he could play a lot of stuff. The man was so great because he could play one note the whole entire song, and you felt that note.
Yeah.
I mean, you felt it. And that, I remember, just like was a sword through me, man. Like, it still to this day blows me away.
People don't really realize, unless you've dug into this, the stuff BB did in the 60s and early 70s was just phenomenal. He started getting but he kind of got more commercialized in the 80s, but the 60s and 70s, man, he rocked. He had some monster albums.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like you were already ready to melt when he played his guitar, and then when his voice comes in, you're just done, like, golly, what a talent.
Have you seen that special, the documentary, I'm sure, on the Eagles?
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty good. That was really,
I own it.
That was great. I really like that, man.
My bucket list, my number one item on my bucket list was always see the Eagles. But it wasn't really before I die. It was before they die.
Did you see them when they toured about 5-6 years ago?
Yeah. So when they did the History of the Eagles tour, we actually, as a wedding present, one of our friends said, next time Eagles are in, expect tickets.
Wow.
And so when they came to Nashville, we got tickets for it, and they put us up in a hotel, and my wife and I went, and it was just a dream come true, man. And the whole what made me think of that is the History of the Eagles thing was what that tour was based around. Mm-hmm. And it literally, like, they pieced the whole show together chronologically. So like started with Glenn and Don Henley out sitting on these road cases doing acoustic stuff you had never heard before, never had been recording.
I saw that show. Believe me, I loved it.
Yeah, it was incredible, And so then, like, people came out as it happened, and it was just like...
They didn't have Don Felder back, though. I wasn't expecting... Well,
yeah.
But you didn't expect to see him. There's so much acrimony between those guys.
Yeah, that's a tough one for the team there.
Yeah.
But oddly enough, those guys are strangely my guitar heroes. I say strangely because I never really dug into the Eagles. I maybe learned maybe 7 of their gazillion songs. But I notice, like, when I hear myself play back on a recording or something, like, it's just like, wow, there's like something in there's a little Joe Walsh, and it's a little this, and it's like, and it totally makes sense, It's just kind of in my soul, but.
That was my favorite part of that show when I was sitting there with my son, you're a little younger than you, but again, this was 5 years ago, and I said, man, I hope they play in the city. And then when Joe Walsh came out and he had like his little breakout, and then he led the band playing in the city, man, I was like, that was so cool. That
might be my favorite song, and I agree. That was the moment for me.
Well, I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Warriors.
I don't believe so. No.
There was a movie called The Warriors. It was pretty famous about New York City, about these gangs in New York, and he wrote. Or I don't know if he wrote the song for that movie, but that was the main song in the movie at the end when they fight.
I had no clue.
Yeah, it's a really cool. It's a guy movie, but it's kind of a cool movie. You should check it out.
I'm a guy. I like movies.
Yeah. It's just I grew up in New York City, so I know when they're going on the train, they're going here and there. I kind of know all these places, but I didn't know when that song came on. I was like, holy! That's the first time I heard it, and I got goosebumps in the theater, and I ran home. Of course, back then there was no internet, so I had to I think I probably called the radio station and said, hey, I just heard this song where Joe Walsh is going in the city, and I asked the DJ what it was. Okay, so Joe Walsh, Don Felder, and B.B. King. Anyone else?
Well, a funny thing is in our previous conversation we had on the phone, I know we talked a little bit about just some of the guys who have been mentoring me. And I'm so thankful for that. And I tell you, one of the coolest things is tapes my mom would play in the car when I was a kid, and like stuff I would hear around my house. There were all these, other records being played, and it was like I never, it was like artists, and so it was like, they had a band, but it's like it wasn't a band, it was an artist. So it's like somebody played that guitar, but who? And as I got older, I started realizing, this session thing is out there, and I started learning these guys' names that have played on these records I was hearing when I was a little kid. And it was like, wow, that's what the guitar is supposed to sound like. That makes me feel something,
sure.
Like guitar is cool. And learning way later on, that it was these guys, it's just like, wow, y'all are my heroes, like you are my heroes.
Session guitar players are just so phenomenally talented. I mean, and, it's when you have the ability to someone to walk in the room and say, okay, here, play this, and you do it well, and you are able to add value to it, not only just, you're not filling in, you're like, holy shit, and then you can do that with all genres. I mean, that's just, that's a serious talent.
Totally, man. Seriously. Totally. I'm hoping one day I'll get there.
Oh, man, you're on your way. Are you kidding? Okay, you made a statement to me the first time we spoke, and I thought it had a lot of really good practical common sense behind it. And you said that when you're teaching, when you have a student, you always recommend they go out and buy themselves a decent guitar when they first start playing. As opposed to something cheap and not as good quality. And I want to talk about that because I really thought that made a ton of sense, and it also resonated with me from my own experience. I've only been playing guitar about 2 years. I played music as a kid, so I guess I played saxophone. I played at Carnegie Hall, so I guess I'm sort of musically inclined. But talk about that. What is your thought process behind that?
Sure, totally. Well, that's something, again, I guess I kind of have to unpack. Like, so I'll start with this. Like, I was reading Walter Isaacson's biography of Einstein. And in the early years, I saw a lot of myself in the way Einstein was. Not in the fact that I'm a genius, because I am definitely not that, but in the fact of these weird quirks he had. Like, he was kind of like, he was a little bit anti-authority, and I don't mean that like in a disrespectful way. It's just kind of like but why? Always questioning,
Sure.
Like, but why? Why do we do it that way? Like, I see a lot of that in me, and I also see, man, I just tell you, like, everything I see so much beauty in, and that sounds like such a weird thing to say, but I do, and it.
No, man, it sounds like you had a very, very positive upbringing, and that's
I did that.
Yeah, and that's the net effect of that. It sounds great, man, and I think anybody listening to this would be bullshitting themselves and someone else if they said that they wish they didn't have that same ability if they don't have it already. I think that's awesome, man, honestly.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah. I appreciate that.
No, seriously.
Well, thanks so much. So, like, even things like baseball, I loved baseball as a kid, but I didn't want to go to practice. I wanted to play baseball with my friends, do what I loved, but I didn't, like, always want somebody telling me what to do. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's some traits there I had to overlook, like there's real life, and some of that I had to get over,
Sure.
But also there was the element of I was only really interested in and wanted to go after and had the drive and the work ethic for something I really connected with. So driving that back into the guitar, and especially as a beginner, I learned on a guitar that felt good, it played good, always had fresh strings on it, and it honestly,
The Baby Taylor you're talking about.
The Baby Taylor,
Yeah.
and even the Washburn. The Washburn sounded great.
Right.
It really did. And Dad always had fresh strings on it. It felt good. And there was that combined with the element of I never had a teacher on guitar until maybe about like 15 or 18 years after I'd been playing, when I wanted to really dive deep. But the reason I couldn't was kind of the T-ball thing. I wanted to always keep that connection with the guitar healthy. And it was always difficult for me when a teacher was saying, this is what we have to do. Forget about the other stuff. This is what we have to do. And so it was tied together with me playing stuff I was really interested in and learning, like how do I get that sound? And then the guitar not feeling like crap. Like I wanted to play it. It felt good in my hands, and because it felt good and because it played good, I was able to get the guitar to speak, not just make notes and not buzz, So we're in a terrific time that we've never been in before as far as that goes, where companies are putting out great instruments for players and they don't break the bank. But, Paul Reed Smith, their SE line, there's me and other session guys, the guys I look up to, are playing some of those, and maybe they've modified them a little bit, but it's still the same physics,
Sure.
Like the guitar feels great. Another guy, Marcus Miller, who has
player.
Has his signature Fender and all that, and he still plays that, but he Sire, I think is the company. Marcus Miller has these basses, man, with Sire, and they're like $400, and these things feel unreal and sound unreal. And he plays them. He still takes his other one out live, and he plays these live, but they're like $400, $500.
That's amazing.
It's so amazing, and so I'm so glad that kids and adults, traditional, non-traditional, doesn't matter, have that to learn on,
Absolutely.
Like that's huge. That is humongous beyond words. So
Yeah,
I think that's the key.
I agree with you. When something feels it, to me, a guitar is, and it made me think of something else actually, but a guitar is, and I've said this before on this podcast, it's like a woman, in the sense that there's an actual relationship there. And no matter what it looks like, the aesthetics, there's got to be something that reaches you beyond, whatever you like, sunburst, or you like gold, gold top, whatever it is. There's got to be something that when you pick it up, that mojo connection is there, where it speaks to you and it allows you to express yourself in the manner that makes you feel like you could communicate, it allows you to say what you want to say in the way you want to say it.
That.
Yeah, so
I cannot agree more. Yeah. Totally so.
Question for you: do you play with a pick or do you use your fingers?
Generally with a pick.
Okay.
There is a specific tonal difference.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like if I'm using a slide, especially like a brass slide, I'll go more fingers.
Right.
Or if some, there's some chicken picking stuff, like the telly country honky tonk style telly picking, sometimes you got to pop the strings. So it's a combination. You're playing, some fingers, some pick. So it just depends.
I only ask because I know when I only use my fingers, I feel that connection with the instrument a little deeper. The problem is, it's really hard to evoke the same sounds with the same dexterity, for me anyway. You look at a guy like Jeff Beck, and I don't know if you ever listen to his stuff, but he doesn't use a pick, and he hasn't in years. And I don't know how he does what he does.
It's unreal. Yeah.
I don't understand it even, So
well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, that's the only reason I asked. I was like, because I know that connection is better.
Well, I have seen in my short time in this career that there are, and I'm talking about things a little different than connecting with the guitar. There are two ways that guitar players make their living. One being they have their voice, and that voice is what makes them, and that's what they run after, and they are an artist doing and getting that voice to the public. And I think that's especially a beautiful thing with like Jeff Beck and even John Mayer now, and Derek Trucks. Like it's their voice. It's their voice, truly. And the fact that the public connects with that is awesome to me. But then there's the second type of player who still has that. And again, these are like the guys that mentor me and what I'm, striving to become in my career. Like, they have that voice, and that voice is in some way stamped on everything they do, but they also have this awesome ability that makes them a session player, that they can go outside of their comfort zone and not be scared, and they can deliver it in an unreal way. And even though they do that, it's still really cool because they still have their individual voice, and it's in some way imprinted in what they play, regardless of the genre. And to me, I think that's one of the things that really intrigues me,
It's I think, well, the reality is, I don't think a session player, they're paid to optimize the guitar for something that's already created.
Yes.
Whereas I think when you're talking about guys that have their own voice, they're paid to create, and so therefore you have more leverage. Mm-hmm. You can step out and you have your own voice because it's your creation. Whereas with a session play, you're creating within the confines of something already designed, and your job is to, sort of like you're an artist and you gotta, or a sculptor, and you gotta put in those fine lines on the lips and on the eyelashes,
Totally. Yeah. And inside of us, there's always more of us wanting to get our own individual voice out, and I think Dan Huff said it best, and there doesn't become a larger, better benchmark for session player than Dan Huff, but he he said once that, even in the middle of all his success of playing on all these hits, he wanted to still create. He wanted to he still needed to put his voice out there, and he had that group Giant that he started, and toured with them, and that was his outlet. That was his way of still doing his voice, which we all still need to do.
For sure, man.
There's a fine line.
Hey, one of the things that everybody listening will appreciate is you're a major gearhead.
Oh, gosh. I am.
Because when you said before, we live in an age where it's so good, I'm like, man, it's a blessing and a curse.
It is definitely both. Yeah.
So let's talk about your top 3 must-have guitars, amps, and pedals.
Oh, yikes.
Only 3. Tick, 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 tick. The pressure's on.
All right. So, okay. Top 3 guitars. I would definitely, like, underlying factor, I would have to connect with all of them, because regardless of what they were. But I'd have to say I'd have to have a Les Paul style guitar, just because that is kind of the humbucker sound, and then a Telecaster. I'm such a Telecaster fan, and sometimes I'm such a fan of it for even unconventional uses, not just country. But and man, one more. That's tough. I'd have to say maybe like an old, like a Chet Atkins country gentleman Gretsch. It's just or like a, that or like a Brian Setzer's Gretsch. It just has such a personality to it.
Now you didn't include PRS.
Well, that kind of came into my mind when I said Les Paul style.
Okay, so it could be a PRS Les Paul style. What are those they call them? What are those called? The guy who used to play for who owned or who worked for Gibson. What do they call those?
Like Ted McCarty.
The McCartys, yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, that's a little more my style, my flavor, right. And that's a little. I venture a little more towards vintage style.
Okay, that was another question I was going to ask you.
Yeah, just a little bit. I tend to just find that I like the way the pickups hit pedals and the way they hit amplifiers. That's what it comes down to, and they feel great. So.
Okay, so that's your top 3 guitars. How about amps?
All right, so amps. I tell you, I have to go with this one, and I play it live a ton. It's a newer one. It's this little Dr. Z head, and it's an 18-watt. And man, this thing is just like a genius pedal platform. Like it has a little of its own personality, but it can take. I can put a hot pickup guitar in front of it. I can put something that's super low output in front of it. I can put a metal pedal in front of it. I can put a clean boost in front of it, delays, anything, you name it, it works. Like, love that amp.
Now, let me pause you on there for 1 second.
Yeah.
So, just take a little detour because I want to. You're a very smart gearhead guy, so I need a recommendation. So, I'm just a bedroom player. I have a Maz Senior. It's 38 watts. It might as well be 3,000 watts. It's
totally
way.
Fair.
I mean, and I have it's just a cabinet, and then I have a Marshall 2x12. If I wanted to, what I'd like to do, and I can never turn it up for obvious reasons because so I never really get the distortion.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no distortion channel on here, but I can't even get any natural overdrive because, my house would come down.
Totally so.
What should I buy? The reason I bought the Z, and I'm not stuck on Z, but the reason I bought the Z was when I had I don't know, waste our time on that, but I liked the Z because I was sick and tired of having these amps. You put an SG in there, you put a Strat or a Tele, and man, you can't hear that there's no differential. And I think a lot of the new Fender amps are like that, to be honest with you. And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I have all these different guitars, and they don't really sound that different.
That's exactly it. And that's the number one thing I would say about the Z is that it every guitar you put in front of it sounds like that guitar. It's a different guitar.
It's just, and otherwise, why have more than one guitar? Right? I mean, what's the point?
In the other case, totally so. I mean, if you're not, as guitar players, it's funny because we like messing up the sound. Honestly, we like coloring the sound.
Yeah.
Bass players they like a little mojo, every now and then, but like a lot of bass players they like high fidelity, and even engineers they like high fidelity, and I mean they do like coloring to an extent, but with guitar players there's nobody that rival us because I mean our speakers are they're cheap speakers. You wouldn't want to put them in a PA. They would color the sound and sound terrible, but we like them because they actually do something bad very good.
Right. Right.
Like that's why we like them.
So what if you had to recommend an amp to me, what would you recommend I get? I mean, I play blues. I like a British blues brown sound. I like a distortion. I don't play metal at all. I'm playing the Allman Brothers. I'm playing Freddie King, the Eagles, Joe Walsh. Some Clapton.
Well, I guess there's it's such a hard thing to recommend because again, everybody plays different and. my amps aren't going to sound the same way with somebody else playing through them as they do with me.
Sure.
But there is a middle ground, I feel like. And, if we're talking strictly about a player that wants to change some guitars and hear the difference in them, and also be able to put pedals in front of the amp, to me, it's harder to find a better amp than that Dr. Z, that little 18-watt.
Is that a combo or a head?
It's a head, the one I have, and mainly just because so I can record with it and put it into different cabinets. It's the Maz 18.
It's just the Maz 18. So it's like the baby version of this. It's like of this Maz 38-watt Senior.
That's exactly it. Actually, the first amp of Dr. Z I bought was the 38, and I slowly found that it was way more than I needed. And just because there's two factors at play. There's the preamp tubes, and we're essentially putting so much signal in them, we're getting them to fail. And we like the sound of the way they fail, And then there's the same thing with the power amp tubes. The problem is with the 30-watt has a volume for the preamp tubes, so you get that where you want it. But then it's way too loud to turn up the power amp where you want it.
Correct. Yeah, so you get the power on 25% up, 9 o'clock at the dial if you're lucky.
Totally. Yeah. So if you're not spanking that power amp a little bit, then it's just not gonna speak, and that's the key for me. So I went to a lower wattage, and I found I liked it, and I sold the 38.
That's what I got. Thank you.
Yeah, and it sounds huge. I mean, I honestly I have so much trouble talking about people giving me compliments. I don't know why, but I get engineers all the time that are like, dude, that amp, it barks, like it sounds huge, and I'm just using it through a little 112 open back,
Oh, wow.
And it's pretty amazing. It's really amazing, honestly.
And it's just the Maz 18.
Yeah, and really the only other amp that I could get the tone out of at bedroom volumes and keep them good at stage volumes is I have an old, like a 65 Princeton, Fender Princeton, and it's that's an amp they did a lot of revisions on, but mine is before they put the reverb in it, and it actually all the way up to 10 is where it barely starts to overdrive. But
wow,
yeah, it's enough, and you can boost it into overdrive. But from 7 to 10, it's this gorgeous power amp is working, the amp is speaking sound, and it takes pedals well. And that's another one.
And this amp is from 1965.
Yeah, 1965, yeah. Wow. It was actually, I think it was the second smallest in the Fender line, the Champ being the smallest one. And it was actually designed to be a practice amp, bedroom amp.
Sure.
But then it might be the most recorded amp in history. I don't know, but it's a powerhouse of a little amp for sure.
Okay, so you got the Maz 18 and 65 Princeton. Any other one you'd throw in there?
I mean, are we talking on a budget here?
No, man, we're talking about the imaginary world of podcasting.
I love that world.
We're talking about, this is where dreams come true, where after you get the amp, you get to fly a fighter pilot plane.
Yes. All right.
Everything is Lord. Sunshine and roses, man.
I love. Can we stay here all day?
We will try. we may need some substances to help us.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, man, from outside of those are probably my favorite pedal platform amps, and there are other great ones for sure, but those are my favorites. Outside of that, it's kind of I'm getting into amps that color a little bit, a little bit more, and have their own voice. They're like another instrument.
Sure.
It's hard to beat an old Tweed Deluxe, It's
right.
such its own thing. Oh, I tell you, I have this 1962 Bassman that I'm in love with. I just love it, and it's a blonde one, and it's
So it looks cool.
It looks cool, yeah. And the first channel is actually, it's built for a bass. The first channel is actually doo-doo. I hate it. And the second channel it's actually, the first channel is labeled bass instrument, I think.
Bass instrument.
Yeah. The second one is labeled like other
treble
instrument
instrument.
or something. Yeah. Yeah, something funny. And that second channel is magic, man.
Is it?
It is magic. And it's actually the amp. Hopefully I won't get in trouble for saying this, but Marshall, the JTM 45, like Hendrix played.
Yeah.
It's what Marshall took and made. It is the JTM 45.
They based it off the 62 Bassman.
It is the 62 Bassman, awesome. At least the first models of it, and it actually even used 6L6 tubes, which was an American-made tube, from what I understand.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so not until later, again, from what I understand, were the EL34s even used, which was the British high-power tube. So yeah, it's essentially a really awesome JTM 45.
Very cool. Okay, so now here's where your disease is really bad. I know the pedals, man. I've seen the photos, and I know, and I would
tickling my fancy.
And I would imagine we're just scratching the surface on them photos.
Yeah, gosh.
You had some picture up the other day, man.
This is where you need to get my wife in.
Yeah, on Facebook, I said, "Is that a retail store? Or is that your office?"
I remember that.
That looked like a place you go to hang out and try everything, man. It was like a candy store.
My wife actually started buying me storage for my pedals as Father's Day and anniversary gifts.
Good wife, man. That's awesome. Hang on.
She's a great wife.
So what were your 3 Desert Island disc pedals or Desert Island pedals?
All right. So there's this cheap German pedal that if you're a Nashville guy, you know of. It's the secret is slowly starting to get out a little more, I guess, around the world, but it's a German pedal called the Nobles is the company, and the ODR1. They make a couple other pedals, but the ODR1 is magic. This is gorgeous overdrive. It's not too compressed. It's nice and open. It feels ampy, is what I'm getting at.
Really?
Yeah.
The Nobles ODR1.
ODR1. You can find them for $99 brand new.
Holy
you can find them. You can find them for $60 on Reverb, probably.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so what I understand from what I've been told, they were made in, I guess, Germany in the 80s. It was just everybody was building pedals, and it had something magic to it. But they were cheap, and apparently, like even like the women that were soldering them in the factory, I had heard they didn't even know really how to solder, and some of them are even like the solder joints are reversed and stuff. Like they had problems, but they were magic. I mean, they were magic. And so they discontinued it, and there were a lot of players who were onto them, especially in the recording scene, and it kind of an uproar happened a little bit, and they made a new one basically.
I'm looking at it here on Reverb, man. Nobles ODR1 Overdrive, brand new, $109.
And I think the remake at first was in like a silver box, and apparently it wasn't the stuff. It just didn't have it. And so, again, everybody kind of didn't like it. And then they reissued the new one. And you'll notice, like, the little rubber plate on it looks a little different. And the writing looks different. But it's still that green, lime green.
Yeah, yeah.
And, dude, that thing is bad. I own 4 of them. Like, it's like...
What, in case they break or something?
Yeah, well, I actually have had one that broke. And I have one that has been rehoused by a buddy in Nashville. And they're not super expensive pedals, but they are magic. I mean, it is, again, backing up. I'm labeling this as my overdrive on the desert island. I mean, it's great. So
I'm going to tell my wife when I order this and she sees another box, I'm going to say, I wasn't going to get it. This guy I interviewed, he like almost forced me.
It's good. It's good. And a little disclaimer, it's going to be different than what you usually feel because, things like tube screamers and stuff, people give them a lot of hell for like them being like having no bass or being too much of a mid hump or whatever. But that's why they do what they do great, that's what they do. And tube screamers are great. But the Nobles has this beautiful characteristic about it to where it thickens something up, but it's never like over the top too much.
So it almost sounds like it's got a little fuzz kind of going, but not to the extreme of a fuzz.
Maybe in the sense of it's a little bit old Marshall-y. I mean, it gets a little bit distortion-y, but not too much. It's still very sweet. But the low end is just, it barks. It's just punchy. Awesome. And it's tight. And it's really nice. You can put it after any pedal, and it'll make it punchy. It's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you're getting in like all these secrets here. So everybody will be the Nobles will be the hot item now, man. I got to stock up on them and then sell them.
Nobles is a good one. Like I said, they're slowly
get them on the show now.
Here.
I'm going to see if I can get them on the show.
You need to.
Yeah, I'd
actually,
like
to. We only know each other through social media, but the company has been very sweet to me.
Cool.
They've been very, very nice. So that would be great.
Awesome.
All right. So now that I've word vomited on you about the Nobles,
no, man, it's great.
The second Desert Island pedal. If I can cheat a little bit and pick a multi-effects unit.
Yeah. Remember, Sunshine and Roses.
Yeah, you're right. I'll be a fighter pilot after this.
Absolutely.
So there is this there's this pedal that a lot of guys have on their board, but again, you kind of see it in the Nashville recording scene. You see it in the LA recording scene, and you see it a lot on that live Nashville boards, especially. But it's these Line 6 pedals, and Line 6. First of all, they got kind of a bad rap not because their effects weren't any good. Their effects are tremendous, and I would encourage anybody to kind of get off that train of thinking like they are tremendous. The problem they had for a little while, just in my own personal opinion, is the conversion, for like summing up a long, boring story, like, your guitar signal is analog and it goes in, it has to convert to digital so the computer knows it,
Mm-hmm.
And then it has to convert back to analog and come out an analog guitar signal, right? So that conversion is really right now, like in the age we're in, that's where all the new development is happening, and that's where you pay a lot for a digital pedal. And every time you convert, you create noise and stuff like that. And Line 6's converters, they might not work now, but when you look back at what they were doing, it was very cutting edge, and they deserve that, the credit. But now, they get a little bit more of a bad name between players, and I don't like that. But it's just because the conversion isn't as good as maybe like Strymon and all that stuff, But that aside, the effects are phenomenal. And so they have these M-series pedals. Again, you'll see a lot on a ton of players' boards. There's the M5 and the M9 and the M13. And they're called the Stomp Box modelers. So basically all of their effects they've ever done, like in Pod Farm or in the pod units or whatever, there's no amps, there's no miking cabinets, there's no acoustic simulators, there's none of that. It's strictly Stomp Box models. So I don't know if you saw a while back, there was like the DL4 green pedal that was really hot. It was a delay pedal.
No, I didn't, but I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not a big pedal. I mean, I have a few pedals. Okay. I'm not mental about pedals.
No problem. So again, trying to keep that short, they had these series of pedals they came out with, and one was strictly a delay unit, and it was excellent. And one was a modulation unit, and one, you get the picture. And so what they did is they basically took all of those pedals and they put them into one unit.
So you got delay, modulation, and what is it, like chorus?
You have reverb, delays, distortions, modulations. I think I named all of them.
Yeah, that's a hell of a... is it a big, massive pedal?
Okay, so you have the M5, the M9, and the M13. The M5 can be any one pedal you want it to be. And there's an additional tap tempo on the side. So if it's a tremolo or a delay, you can sync up the time.
Oh, that's really cool.
Really cool, yeah. And then there's the M9, which I have two of. I have one on each main pedal board. They're I'm going to try not to take up time doing this, but there's like 3 effects units in it, and each effects unit has 2 sounds you can pick from. So you can have any 3 sounds on at one time that you want, but you can have 6 to pick from.
Oh, that's very cool.
You probably have to look at it to make sense of that.
So
but
you have like 8 options altogether, I think that means, right? 2 times 2 times 2, is that right? Something like that?
You have 6 options. You have three effects units. And you have 2 effects you can put on in each effect unit, but only one of them can be on at a time.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
You can basically have any 3 of the 6 on at one time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And it's super cool. And then you can like change the order of it, and there's even another tap tempo on it. And they have the M13, which is huge. It's like a lot of options. It's a full pedal board size.
Oh wow.
But anyway, the M9 would be my desert island, just because it's I don't care for the distortions a whole lot. They're great for gag stuff, but the delays are tremendous, the reverbs are tremendous, the mods are tremendous, and it has a looper in it, so I could record and play with myself.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, so
Very
that's
cool.
a perfect desert island pedal.
All right, one more. So you got Noble's ODR1, the Line 6 M9.
It's funny, I play this game all the time with my friends, and I can never remember what I say.
It's a new dawn, a new day.
It is a new dawn and a new day. I would honestly, a lot of people are going to kick me in the butt for this, but I would have to say a volume pedal.
Really? That is interesting.
Yeah. The reason I say a volume pedal is because, again, it helps me be very expressive. Like, there's 2 ways you can approach volume, and if you think of them in front of an amp or a distortion pedal, that's a good way to do it. So if I have my guitar going into the distortion pedal, as I turn down my volume on my guitar, it changes the signal strength that's going into the distortion, so the gain is going to get less out of the distortion pedal.
Right.
But if I have a volume pedal after it at a low volume or my heel all the way down, it's still the same amount of distortion coming through, just at a different.
So you can mitigate the lack of you don't have to, just because you back off on the volume, you're not backing off on the gain.
That's exactly.
It's a way for you to cheat, sort of. So it's a way for you to okay, I get you. I totally get you.
And if you think of like a steel guitar player, how they come in and out, and it's like a crying, swelling effect. You can do that now,
Oh, very interesting. Do you do that? You use that a lot when you're playing in the studio?
I use that quite a bit, especially now in modern music. Like, swells and ambient things are very popular now. And, if going a little farther from that, if I were to put the M9, say, after it with some delays on it, we'll see, if you think of like the volume pedal's a floodgate. All that water is built up behind it, and I can adjust how much of the water I want to come through.
Yeah.
But if I close the volume pedal down, the delay is still going to keep going whatever I let through.
Gotcha, man. You know what? And I think the fact that you picked the volume pedal probably ties in with what you said earlier about listening, because I think you're better equipped to find a place for that when you're more concerned with what's the
fitting in.
Yeah, when you're more like a rising tide, you know what I'm saying? When you're all when you're the sum of the synergy, when the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, when your mindset is more geared towards when your awareness.
Yes.
Yeah, when you have an awareness of fitting in and create and blending and rising all together, I think that would lend itself to more using a volume pedal than the average person, the average guitarist who's thinking about, man, I want to sound good.
Yeah. And that's totally it. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And
very
when you're playing by yourself, you're 100% of the sound.
Yeah.
But when you're playing, on a record, it's that song is the 100% pie, and you're just a sliver of that pie. So,
I have this expression: is how you do one thing is how you do everything, and you're like a very good example of that because everything that you're very consistent in your playing habits across the board. It's not like you do this in this area but something else. I mean, everything you're doing is fitting in with the same picture. That's really awesome, man. Hey, we're taking a lot of time. I want to ask you 3 more questions, personal questions, and then we're going to wrap up because I don't want to take too much time. I really
Let's do it.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
It's a good question. Again, this fits into another conversation we had. Like I strongly feel from everything in my life, it's been very, very directed in what ways I should take in spending time with the Lord in prayer. So I'm really on the road right now, going down the session road because I feel really led to it. And a year or so ago, I actually had this same question in my head, is it becoming too much of my own will in this, And one of my great mentors and a fantastic session guy in Nashville named Dave Cleveland said this to me at lunch one day. He said, Blake, if God called me to sell all, he's just like I am. He is a gear snob. And he said, if God called me tomorrow to sell all my stuff and go in a completely different career path, he said, I can honestly say I'm at a point now to where I wouldn't think twice about it. He said, I would do it. He said, I might have some questions and be a little frustrated, but he said, I can gladly do that. And I would be at peace with that. And that just really, really hit me hard. And so I have to say my best answer, and hopefully not too cliche, would be to whatever I felt like the Lord was leading me to, I know I'm going to be taken care of in that. Selfishly, if I had to do anything, I'd be a dang fighter pilot.
Well, you know what, though? I think whether you're led by a relationship with a higher power or whether you sort of allow the universe to guide you, it's been my experience that the best things happen emotionally, financially, and just being happy when you listen to the universe, to a higher power or something. When the universe supports what you're doing, you're in the right place. Yeah. Because I can tell you personally, I have had taken on business projects where I've had to kill myself, and now that I'm older, I'm able to say, this is not meant to be. This isn't a function of bad marketing this is just not meant to be. I'm in the wrong place, so let me put this down and go somewhere else. Whereas when I was younger, I would kill it, because I'm a persistent guy. I don't like giving up. I have a good work ethic, whatever, blah, 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 fill in the blanks. But I've realized now that just creates a lot of unnecessary stress in your life.
Oh, same here. I've definitely found that kind of going with my gut, is generally the best option,
What's the favorite place you've traveled?
Oh man, Ireland.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody I know who goes there loves it.
Oh, it's gorgeous, and I'm part Irish, and so it's a little bit. a little bit in me blood. But,
yeah, I hear that, man.
I played with this. It was like a gospel group, and it was a small vocal group. And then we were there for like a week and a half doing that. And then the choir, like a 60, 70 person choir flew over, and we did another like 2 or 3 weeks with them. So about a month we were in Ireland. And the people are wonderful. You get, the people that say that we eat way too much in the U.S., they eat some food, man.
They don't eat very healthy food either.
No, there are 8 starches at every meal on your plate.
My wife is from the UK, man, so believe me, I know the program. It's not much different, and it's just like, oh my God, I don't know how you guys function. I know.
Man,
and every meal has alcohol with it, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
They do, yeah.
And I don't get that because I'm like, holy, I have a tough time functioning sober, so, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't do that in the morning.
No. One more question. What's the most important lesson that life, music, or your business has taught you so far?
That nothing is more important than, or I should say, nothing is worth overlooking and killing a relationship.
That's good.
I think, again, relationships are with people. Genuine relationships are the most valued thing I have in my life, and I would do anything short of a sin to not mess that relationship up. Like, I love people, and you can always count on people, whether you feel like it or not. You know, even though you can't at a time, you know, you can down the road, I think, always count on somebody. So,
well, I'll tell you what, a lot of people would tell me that, and I would get off the call and I would laugh. But I know you're 100% sincere because I've talked to you enough that's totally genuine. Listen, man, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I know you're really busy. Is there anything that you'd like to promote or let people know about? I know you're doing a lot of session work. Do you do any tracks? Do you give in lessons? You know, tell me.
I do tracks, and I just said do. I can. I have an overdub studio in our house. There is no project too big or too small. I would be more than happy to give anybody's project the full attention they need. My website, I've got a new website coming out here in the next month or two.
And your website's pretty good. It's much better than most guys, to be honest with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Blake, let me type Blake, Blake, Wrinn, WRINN, music.com. For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you do lessons?
I do enjoy lessons, and I have to say, just kind of with everything going on, I only take, gosh, I don't want this to sound snobby. I only am at the moment where I can take kind of masterclass style stuff.
Sure.
Just because there's a more accountability there, I think, people on the level where they want to take something and practice it and then come back and us get together, whether it's a couple weeks or a month later. But I love to, again, meet people and do that. I'm trying to do the social media thing a lot stronger. I do have a strong
man.
Instagram.
You're doing good. You got a what do you call it? You have a page.
A page.
And you have a personal profile, man. That was impressive.
I'm on Instagram all the time, and I'd love people to hang out with me on Instagram. It's just at @BWrinn, so at BWRINN.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to, he's got a ton of music. If you want to check out how he plays on his website, Blake's got a lot of stuff there. So if you do want to take a lesson and you're, a little more of a mature player, can they contact you? Is there a contact form on the website?
Yes. And I think I've put my email also on everything. I will take emails all day long.
Okay. Great. So you want to get a hold of him, go to Blake Wrinn Music. It's Blake, BlakeWrinn Music. You know, I all you guys are so cool that I meet with, but none of y'all can sell for anything. So I always feel like I got to push the ball forward for you guys.
Thanks,
man, because I really want something good to happen from this. Listen, man, this is a very, very hardworking guy. He has not beat his chest. He's got a lot of stuff going on. He's a really, he's moving up in the studio world, and he's a very good guitar player. So, man, I can't thank you enough for your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody have any comments, send them in to us. You know where to get us on the contact form. Thank you for listening to another episode. And Blake, you're the best, man. Thank you for your time.
Man, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Hey, thanks very much for listening. You can sign up to get notified of future episodes on our website at everyonelovesguitar.com. Now go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.